The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was watering the petunias in the backyard. Michael's name illuminated my phone screen, and I felt that peculiar mixture of hope and dread that only a mother can truly understand. For months had passed since I'd last heard his voice. I answered with my heart pounding. "Mom, I need to talk to you right now." His tone was flat, almost hostile. There was no affectionate greeting, no questions about my well-being, just that urgency I knew all too well. That way of treating me as though I were an employee available at any hour. "Tell me, son, what do you need?" I replied, trying to maintain my composure. He drew a deep breath and released the words like knives. "Jessica's mother just bought a new house, an incredible mansion in a gated community. She knows how to live. Mom, she actually did something with her life. And you? When are you going to get out of that ancient house and achieve some success?" I felt as though the air had been torn from my lungs. My fingers gripped the hose until the water stopped flowing. Michael continued without giving me a chance to respond. "Seriously, Mom, it embarrasses me when my in-laws ask about you and I have to tell them you're still there in that house that looks like it's from the 70s, doing nothing productive. Jessica always tells me her mom is an example of a successful woman, and I don't know what to say when she asks what you've accomplished." I closed my eyes. The afternoon sun burned the back of my neck, but I felt cold throughout my entire body. Every word from my son was a slap across the face, a slap that hurt more because it came from the hands I had held when he learned to walk. "Michael," I began, but he interrupted me again. "No, Mom, let me finish. Linda, my mother-in-law, invited us this Saturday to her housewarming party. There are going to be more than 50 guests, important people, business owners, doctors, real professionals. Jessica asked if we could invite you, but I told her it would be better not to, that it would be uncomfortable for everyone. You understand, right?" It wasn't a question. It was a declaration. My son was uninviting me from my own life. "I understand," I whispered, although I understood nothing. Or perhaps I understood too much. "Look, Mom, I'm not telling you this to hurt you. I'm telling you because I love you and want you to react. Dad died 3 years ago already. It's time you did something with your life. Sell that house. Move to a smaller apartment. Something more modern. Prove that you can also be somebody. Somebody, as if I were nobody. As if the 32 years I dedicated to raising him, to cooking every meal, to waiting up for him every night of his adolescence, to paying for his entire college tuition, didn't make me somebody. As if being his mother was worth absolutely nothing." He hung up without saying goodbye. The dial tone buzzed in my ear like an insect. I stood in the guard of the hose hanging uselessly in my hand, staring at the petunias that suddenly seemed pathetic to me. Small flowers trying to look pretty in a garden that no one visited. I went inside and sank onto the living room sofa. That cream-colored sofa Michael had just called old. The same sofa where he'd sat as a child to watch cartoons while I braided his hair, still damp from his bath. The same sofa where we cried together the day his father died. The same sofa that now, according to him, was evidence of my failure. My cell phone vibrated. A message from Jessica. Finally, she dared to write to me directly after months of silence. "Hi, Evelyn. Michael told me you guys talked. I hope you understand. It's not personal. It's just that Mom's party is going to be very elegant, and we don't want you to feel out of place. You know how high society people are. They judge a lot. And, well, you've always been simpler. There's nothing wrong with that. Everyone has their level. Kisses." I read the message 3 times. Every word was carefully chosen to sound kind while stabbing me. Everyone has their level, as if I were below and they were above, as if my life were inferior simply because I didn't display it on social media. I stood and walked a window. From there, I could see the quiet street of the neighborhood, my neighbors' houses, some newer, others older than mine, all with stories, all with families that probably also had their silent dramas. I remember the day Michael married Jessica 5 years ago. I wore a champagne-colored dress I'd had custom-made. I looked good. I felt good. But Jessica looked me up and down at the reception and whispered something to her mother, Linda. The two of them laughed. I pretended not to notice. Later, When my grandson Ethan was born, I tried to be present. I bought the most expensive crib in the store, designer clothes for the baby, diapers, bottles, everything they needed. But Jessica always had an excuse. Not today, Evelyn. The baby is sleeping. Not today, we have visitors. Not today, we're busy. Not today. Not today. Until I stopped asking. Until the visits became spaced out. Until my grandson turned 2, and I barely held him 6 times. And Michael never said anything. He never defended me. Little by little, he transformed into a stranger who carried my last name, but no longer my love. I looked at my cell phone again. Jessica's message was still there. Those poisoned words disguised as consideration. Everyone has their level. Something broke inside me in that moment. It wasn't dramatic. There were no tears or screams, just a fissure, small but deep. The fissure that forms when you realize the people you love despise you. I poured myself a glass of water in the kitchen. My hands trembled slightly. 61 years of life, and my own son called me a failure. 61 years of work, of sacrifice, of unconditional love, reduced to an old house and an insignificant existence. But there was something they didn't know, something I kept secret for 2 years, a secret that glowed in the darkness of my humiliation, like a promise of justice. I smiled. It was a small smile, barely a movement at the corners of my lips, because I had already bought my house, my mansion, my palace facing the sea. Night fell over my house like a heavy blanket. I sat in the dining room with a cup of tea, growing cold in my hands. Michael's words kept bouncing through my head like ping-pong balls. Old house, no success, embarrassment. Every word was a hammer, striking what remained of my self-esteem. But I had a secret so enormous that sometimes I woke in the early morning wondering if it was real or just a beautiful dream. 3 years ago, when my husband died, the world collapsed. Robert had been my partner for 38 years, the man who brought me flowers every Friday, who hugged me from behind while I cooked, who whispered that I was the most beautiful woman in the world even when I had messy hair and food-stained clothes. His death was sudden. A heart attack while driving home from work. I didn't have time to say goodbye. Only the phone ringing at 6 o'clock in the evening and the voice of a paramedic saying, "I'm so sorry, ma'am." The first months were hell. Michael came to visit me often then. He hadn't married Jessica yet. He was still my son. He hugged me, made me coffee, stayed to sleep in his old room, so I wouldn't feel alone. But then he met Jessica at a business conference. She worked in marketing for a major company. Pretty, self-assured, with that type of confidence that comes from never having truly suffered. Michael fell in love like a teenager, and I was happy for him. I was genuinely happy. The wedding was 6 months later. Everything moved very quickly. Jessica insisted it be at the private country club where her family had a membership, a place with enormous windows, marble floors, and waiters wearing white gloves. I felt out of place from the moment I arrived. Linda, Jessica's mother, greeted me with 2 air kisses that didn't touch my skin. "What a nice dress, Evelyn," she told me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "It's vintage, right?" The way she said vintage sounded as though she'd said garbage. That night at the reception, Jessica pulled me into a corner, her ivory dress shimmering under the lights. "Evelyn, I need to ask you something," she said in a voice soft but firm. "Michael is starting a new chapter of his life, an important chapter. I come from a family with certain social expectations. I need you to understand that sometimes, at business meetings or important events, maybe it's better if you don't attend. It's nothing personal. It's just that image is important in my world." I remained mute. Literally, I couldn't form a single word. She took my silence as agreement, gave me a pat on the arm, and walked away toward her friends who were laughing while drinking champagne. I didn't say anything to Michael. What was I going to tell him? "Your wife doesn't want me around because she sees me as poor?" It sounded ridiculous, even in my head. So I swallowed the poison and smiled in the photos. 3 months after the marriage, Michael arrived at my house with eyes bright with excitement. "Mom, I have an amazing opportunity. An investment partner wants us to open a digital advertising agency. It's the perfect moment, but I need initial capital, $50,000. My heart raced. $50,000 was a substantial amount, but he was my son, my only son, the boy I'd raised while Robert worked double shifts, the young man who graduated with honors thanks to me paying every tuition bill without complaint. I had that money. Robert had left me some savings. I wasn't a millionaire, but we had enough to live comfortably. I gave the $50,000 to Michael in a check. He hugged me tightly. "You're the best mom in the world. I'm going to pay you back every cent. I promise." He never did. The agency went bankrupt in 8 months. Michael arrived at my house one afternoon with dark circles under his eyes and told me he was sorry, that the economy was bad, that his partner had defrauded him, that everything had gone down the drain. "I lost your money, Mom. I'm so sorry." I hugged him. "Don't worry, son. Money comes and goes. The important thing is that you're okay." He cried on my shoulder like when he was a child. But Jessica didn't come with him that day. Jessica showed not even a trace of empathy. In fact, 2 weeks later, I saw her posting on social media photos of a vacation in Cancun, a vacation that easily cost $5,000. When I asked Michael how they could go on vacation if they just lost so much money, he answered me sharply. "Jessica had those vacations planned since before Mom. I'm not going to disappoint her just because the business went wrong. She already has enough stress." Enough stress. As if losing $50,000 of his mother's money wasn't a reason for stress for her. That's where the distancing began, little by little, like a crack in a wall that grows so slowly you don't realize it until the wall splits in two. The calls became less frequent. The visits decreased. When Ethan was born, my grandson, I could barely see him in the hospital. Jessica said she was too exhausted for visitors. After that, there was always an excuse. But what they didn't know, what no one knew except my lawyer David and my best friend Susan, was that Robert had left me much more than simple savings. Robert had invested in real estate and stocks for years. Small investments, constant, silent. He was never one to brag. He never wore brand-name clothes or drove luxury cars. But he was intelligent with money. When he died, the lawyer summoned me 3 months later for the full reading of the will. I expected perhaps $100,000 in savings. When David showed me the papers, I nearly fainted. $2,300,000 in liquid assets, properties that had appreciated, shares of tech companies that had exploded in value. Robert had left me wealthy, and I hadn't even known it. "Evelyn," David told me seriously, "this money changes your life. You can do whatever you want. Travel, invest, live like a queen." But I didn't want to live like a queen. I just wanted to be close to my son and my grandson, so I kept the secret. I didn't tell Michael anything. I thought that perhaps if he believed I was poor, he would keep visiting me out of love and not out of self-interest. How foolish I was. A year after Robert's death, David called me with a proposal. "Evelyn, there's a property facing the ocean that just came on the market. It's a spectacular mansion. 4 bedrooms, infinity pool with ocean view, gardens designed by an award-winning landscaper. It's in pre-sale. If you buy it now, you'll save $200,000 off the final price." I went to see it one Saturday morning. I drove 2 hours to the coast with Susan accompanying me. She was the only person besides David who knew my real financial situation. My friend for 30 years, the woman who was with me in the hospital when Michael was born, the one who held my hand at Robert's funeral. When we arrived at the property, I was left breathless. The mansion was a light sand color with terracotta roof tiles. The enormous windows reflected the sky. The entrance featured a hand-carved stone fountain. Palm trees lined the cobblestone path that led to the main door. The real estate agent welcomed us with a professional smile. "Mrs. Evelyn, welcome. Allow me to show you paradise." We toured every corner. The main living room had imported light wood floors. The kitchen looked like something from a magazine with stainless steel appliances and a central granite island. The bedrooms were spacious and luminous, each with its own private marble bathroom. But what stole my heart was the back terrace, an infinite expanse of wood that led directly to the pool. And beyond the pool, the ocean. The horizon merged with the water in a perfect line. The sound of the waves was a siren song, calling me to stay forever. Susan squeezed my hand. Buy it, Evelyn. This is yours. You deserve it. I signed the papers that same afternoon. $750,000. The biggest and most impulsive purchase of my life. But I didn't regret it for a second. The mansion would be ready in a year. Meanwhile, I continued living in my old house, as Michael called it contemptuously. I kept the secret like a treasure, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal it. I thought that moment would be the housewarming. I planned a beautiful party. I hired a catering service, a DJ, decorators. I ordered elegant invitations on recycled paper with gold lettering. 50 invitations for family, friends, neighbors, colleagues of Robert who were still in touch with me. One of those invitations was for Michael and Jessica. I delivered it personally one Sunday when they stopped briefly at my house. It was one of those obligatory visits that Jessica allowed every 2 months. 15 minutes of forced conversation in the living room, while Ethan played with a toy car on the floor and I was dying to hug him. I extended the cream-colored envelope. It's an invitation for something special, I told him with a smile. I would love for you to come. Michael took the envelope reluctantly. What is it, Mom? Your birthday isn't until December. Open it and you'll see. He removed the card and read it aloud. Evelyn Reyes invites you to the inauguration of her new residence. Saturday, May 20th at 6 o'clock in the evening. Dress code, elegant. Please confirm attendance. There was silence. Jessica snatched the card from Michael's hands. Her eyes scanned the letters with an incredulous expression. Then she let out a laugh. A sharp, cruel laugh. Oh, Evelyn, really? What imagination. New residence? You moved to a smaller apartment finally? No. I replied, maintaining my calm. It's a house on the coast. Jessica exchanged a look with Michael. That look couples share when they think someone is delusional. Uh-huh. Sure. A house on the coast. And I suppose you also bought a yacht. I didn't answer. I just smiled. Michael looked at me with something resembling concern. Mom, are you okay? Have you been taking your vitamins? Sometimes at your age, people start to have episodes of confusion. I'm 61 years old, Michael, not 90. I am perfectly lucid. I bought a house 2 years ago. The remodeling just finished. I want you to come see it. Jessica stood up from the sofa abruptly. She took the invitation and ripped it into 4 pieces, letting them fall onto the coffee table like confetti. Evelyn, I don't know what little game you're playing, but we're not going to play along. It's pathetic. A woman of your age inventing fantasies to get attention. I'm not inventing anything. Then show us a photo. Show us the deed. Show us something that proves you're not delusional. I had my cell phone in my pocket. I had hundreds of photos of the mansion, videos of the ocean, images of every room. But something in the way Jessica looked at me, with that absolute contempt, made me keep silent. I don't have to prove anything to you, Jessica. She laughed again. Of course not, because it doesn't exist. Michael, let's go. I'm not going to stay here listening to delusions. Michael picked up Ethan from the floor. The boy protested because he wanted to keep playing, but his father carried him firmly. Mom, I think you should see a doctor. Get some tests done. Sometimes stress and loneliness can cause hallucinations. I'm not hallucinating. Okay, Mom, whatever you say. We're leaving. And please don't send more invitations to imaginary things. It's worrying. They left. The door closed behind them with a dry thud. I remained seated on the sofa, staring at the broken pieces of my invitation on the table. Susan emerged from the kitchen, where she'd been listening to everything. She hugged me tightly. Oh, Evelyn, they're miserable people, complete wretches. I cried that night. I cried until I ran out of tears. Not because of the humiliation, but because of the certainty that my son had lost himself, that the boy I loved with every cell in my body now saw me as a burden, as a crazy old woman who invented lies to get attention. 2 weeks later, I received a message from Jessica, this time without the disguise of kindness. Evelyn, please seek professional help. Michael is very worried about your mental health. If you continue with these fantasies, we're going to have to consider more serious options. No one wants to see you institutionalized, but if you continue like this, we'll have no alternative. She was threatening me. She was threatening to lock me in a psychiatric hospital for telling the truth. I called David that same afternoon. I told him everything. He remained silent for a few seconds, and then said something that changed everything. Evelyn, I have copies of everything. Deeds, photographs, contracts. If they want proof, I have a mountain of proof. Just tell me when and where, and I'll bring everything. Not yet, David. It's not the right moment yet. Because I had learned something in my 61 years of life. Revenge is a dish best served cold, and I was going to wait for the perfect moment to freeze them all. That moment arrived 3 months later, when Michael called me to humiliate me on the phone, when he compared me to Linda, when he told me I was an embarrassment. That was the signal I'd been waiting for. That night, after hanging up the call and reading Jessica's venomous message, I dialed David's number. He answered on the second ring. Evelyn, what surprise? How are you? David. I replied with a calm voice. I think it's time. Prepare everything. Every document, every photograph, every piece of proof. We're going to need them very soon. There was a pause. Then I heard the smile in his voice. Finally, it was about time. Those people are going to learn who you really are. I hung up the phone and sat in the darkness of my living room. Outside, the wind moved the branches of the plum tree that Robert had planted 20 years ago. I could feel his presence as if he were sitting next to me, holding my hand. My love, I whispered to the air, I hope you're watching this, because I'm going to make them regret it. For you, for me, for all the years they humiliated us. Friday night, I received an unexpected message. It was from Linda, Jessica's mother. She'd never written to me directly. In fact, in 5 years of knowing her, we'd barely exchanged more than 20 words. Dear Evelyn, said the message with a fake sweetness I could feel through the screen, tomorrow is the inauguration of my new house. I know Michael mentioned it to you. Jessica told me that perhaps you'd feel uncomfortable coming, but I insist that you attend. After all, you are the grandmother of my grandson. It would be nice if you were present. The address is 2847 Oakwood Avenue, Oakwood Estates, at 7 o'clock in the evening. See you tomorrow. I read the message 3 times. Every word dripped with condescension. Perhaps you'd feel uncomfortable, as if the problem were my discomfort and not her contempt, as if she were doing me a favor by inviting me at the last minute. Susan was with me when the message arrived. She read over my shoulder and snorted. It's a trap, Evelyn. They're inviting you to humiliate you publicly so all their wealthy friends can see you and laugh at the poor mother-in-law. I know, I replied, but I'm going anyway. You're crazy. They're going to destroy you. I smiled. Let them try. That night, I called David. Tomorrow is the day, I told him without preamble. I need you to come prepared with absolutely everything. Deeds, photographs, invoices, receipts. I want every proof of the existence of my mansion. And I also need you to bring something else. What, Evelyn? The pieces of the invitation. There was a confused silence on the other end of the line. What invitation? The one Jessica ripped in front of me 3 months ago. I picked it up from the floor after they left. I kept it in a plastic bag. It's in the first drawer of my desk. I need you to photograph it properly. Make sure Jessica's fingerprints are visible where she tore it. Make sure the date is visible. Make sure everything is visible. David remained quiet for a moment. Then he let out a low laugh. Evelyn, you scare me when you get like this, but I love it. I'm going to prepare a presentation that will leave them speechless. See you tomorrow at 8:30. The party starts at 7. I want you to arrive when everyone is already gathered. Maximum impact. Understood. Oh, and Evelyn, one question. Are you going alone, or do you want Susan to accompany you from the beginning? I'm going to arrive alone, like the poor mother-in-law they think I am. I want them to see me enter humbly. I want them to feel they've won. And later, David, later we're going to wipe those smiles off their faces. I hung up and stood looking at my closet. What does one wear to their own public execution? What does one wear when she knows she's going to end her hell, but also knows she's going to emerge victorious? I pulled out a pearl gray dress, simple elegant, but discreet. No flashy jewelry, no excessive makeup. I wanted to look exactly as they imagined me. An older woman, simple, almost invisible. Saturday dawned with a clear sky. I woke early, although the party wasn't until evening. Nerves gnawed at my stomach. Not nerves of fear, but nerves of anticipation, like an athlete before the most important competition of their life. Susan arrived at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. She brought a bottle of wine. "For the nerves," she said with a smile, "although I think the ones who are going to need wine are them when you're done with them." I got ready slowly. Every movement was deliberate. I combed my hair into a low bun, no elaborate hairstyles. Minimal makeup, a touch of pale pink lipstick. The pearl earrings Robert had given me for our 20th anniversary. The gray dress. Low black shoes. I looked in the mirror. I looked exactly like what they wanted me to be, a common woman, a forgettable mother, an insignificant mother-in-law. Perfect. I left home at 6:40. The drive to Oakwood Estates took 25 minutes. It was an exclusive area of the city. Huge houses with perfectly manicured gardens, electric gates, private security guards on every corner. I gave the address to the guard at the entrance. He checked a list and let me pass with reluctance, as if it were obvious I didn't belong there. Linda's house was impressive. Not as large as my mansion, but definitely luxurious. Modern facade with enormous windows, garden illuminated with indirect lights, expensive cars parked on the street, a BMW, 2 Mercedes, an Audi, a Tesla. I parked my 10-year-old sedan between the Mercedes and the Audi. It looked ridiculous there, like an ugly duckling among swans. I took a deep breath, grabbed my small purse, and walked toward the entrance. The door was open. Soft music drifted from inside, along with laughter, conversations, the clinking of glasses toasting. I entered. The living room was full of elegant people, men in designer suits, women wearing dresses that cost more than the monthly rent of an average apartment, sparkling jewelry, glasses of champagne, waiters circulating with trays of canapes. No one noticed me enter, or perhaps they saw me and didn't consider me worthy of attention. I searched for Michael with my gaze. I found him in a corner talking with a group of men. He was wearing a dark gray suit I didn't recognize. He looked good. He looked successful. He was laughing at something one of the men was saying. Jessica was on the other side of the room. Her emerald green dress fit her perfectly. Her hair fell in soft waves, her makeup impeccable. She was speaking with a group of women who looked at her as if she were a celebrity. And there, in the center of everything, was Linda, the hostess, the queen of the castle. Champagne-colored dress with gold details, diamond necklace, radiant smile. I approached slowly, like a ghost crossing a ballroom. Linda saw me first. Her smile froze for a fraction of a second. Then she composed herself and walked toward me with extended arms. "Evelyn, what a joy that you came." Her hug was mechanical. Her lips grazed the air near my cheek, without actually touching me. "You look very good. Very appropriate for the occasion." Appropriate. Another poisoned word. "Thank you for inviting me. Linda, your house is beautiful." She lit up. "Isn't it though? It took a year of remodeling, but it was worth every cent. Come, let me show you." She took me by the arm as if we were friends and guided me through the house. She showed me the Italian kitchen, the dining room with a table for 12 people, the private movie theater in the basement, the study with mahogany bookshelves, the back garden with its wooden deck and stainless steel grill. In every space, she dropped comments. "This lamp is from Murano, imported directly from Italy. This painting is by an award-winning artist. This floor is German porcelain. It costs $200 a square meter." Every word was a reminder of her superiority, of my inferiority. I just nodded, smiled, congratulated. We returned to the main living room. Linda tapped a glass with a knife. The clinking made everyone quiet and turned toward her. "Friends, family, thank you for being here tonight. This house represents a dream fulfilled, years of hard work and dedication. I want to propose a toast to all of you who accompany me in this special moment. And I want to toast especially to my daughter Jessica and my son-in-law Michael. You are my pride." Everyone applauded. Jessica smiled. Michael raised his glass. Then Linda saw me. Her eyes gleamed with something dark. And I also want to thank Evelyn for coming. I know it's not easy for her to be in environments like this. She comes from more modest circumstances. But it's important to include the whole family regardless of their economic differences. The silence that followed was deafening. All eyes turned toward me. I could feel the pity, the judgment, the discomfort. Jessica bit her lip to keep from laughing. Michael looked at the floor, and I smiled. A calm smile, a smile they interpreted as shameful humility. Linda continued with her speech. She raised her glass higher, and her voice acquired that tone of false inspiration people use when they want to seem profound. We all have different paths in life. Some of us achieve material success. Others find wealth in simpler things. And that's okay. Everyone lives according to their capabilities. The words floated in the air like knives covered in honey. Several people nodded with feigned compassion. A woman with a pearl necklace looked at me with that expression, reserved for abandoned puppies in the street. Jessica approached me with her glass of champagne. She looked radiant under the indirect lights. Evelyn, I'm glad you came. I know it must be difficult for you to be here seeing all this, but it's good for you to get out of your comfort zone, to see how successful people live. Maybe it will inspire you to do something with your life. I gripped my purse tighter. My knuckles turned white, but I maintained the smile. Thank you, Jessica. It's definitely inspiring. She gave me a little pat on the shoulder as if I were a child needing comfort, then walked away toward her friends who were waiting with curious expressions. I watched them whispering. One of them looked at me sideways and laughed behind her hand. Michael finally approached. He seemed uncomfortable. Mom, you didn't have to come if you didn't want to. You called me to compare me with Linda. I replied in a low voice, so only he could hear. You told me she'd actually done something with her life. I wanted to see that with my own eyes. He sighed. Look, Mom, I didn't say that to hurt you. I just want you to react, to do something productive. You're 61 years old, not 90. You still have time to improve your situation. My situation, as if I were bankrupt, as if I lived in misery. I understand, son. He studied me for a moment, seeming to want to say something else, but Jessica called him from the other side of the room. Michael, come. I want to introduce you to someone important. My son left me standing alone next to a decorative plant, like a piece of furniture, like something that was there, but no one really wanted to see. A waiter passed with a tray of champagne. I took a glass, although I had no intention of drinking it. I just needed something to do with my hands. I moved toward the large window facing the garden. From there, I could see the whole room without being the center of attention. It was easier to breathe on the periphery. I observed the people. Everyone looked comfortable in their wealth. Conversations about trips to Europe, stock investments, private schools for the children, memberships in exclusive clubs. A world where money flowed like water, and no one worried about unpaid bills. Linda was in her element. She circulated among the guests like a queen betending her hive. Jessica followed her, mother and daughter, so alike, so sure of their superiority. I looked at my watch. 8:15. David would arrive in 15 minutes. I felt a presence at my side. It was an older man, perhaps 70 years old, with perfectly combed gray hair and a dark suit. He smiled at me with genuine kindness. Good evening. You're Evelyn, right? I'm Frank, the accountant for Linda's family. Nice to meet you. He looked around and then leaned slightly toward me, lowering his voice. I heard what Linda said a while ago. It was unnecessary. You didn't deserve to be pointed out like that. His words took me by surprise. He was the first person all night showing real empathy. Thank you, Frank. That's kind of you to say. He shook his head. It's not kindness. It's basic decency. I've been working with this family for 20 years. I've seen many things. And let me tell you something. Money doesn't make people. It only amplifies what they already are. Before I could respond, Linda appeared like lightning. Frank, I need you for a moment. Excuse us, Evelyn. She whisked him away toward a group of guests. But Frank's words stayed with me. Money only amplifies what they already are. Linda and Jessica had always been cruel. Money only gave them a bigger stage to display it. 8:25. 5 minutes. I took my cell phone out of my purse. I had a message from David. I'm at the door. Confirm when you want me to enter. I have everything. This is going to be epic. I waited. I wanted the moment to be perfect. Jessica stepped onto what appeared to be a small decorative platform in the living room. She tapped her glass with a ring, and everyone turned toward her. Family, friends, I want to say a few words. First, Mom, thank you for this beautiful house. You're an example of what hard work and vision can achieve. You taught us that in life you have to aim high, that settling for mediocrity is dying while alive. Her eyes found me in the crowd. The smile on her lips was pure malice disguised as sweetness.